is the $2 million Belmont Stakes getting ready this weekend, and we have got you covered. Who should you bet? Who should you focus on? Where are the big money horses, and do they have a shot at hitting the board? These are all questions we'll answer for you here with the Pony Pundits as they are in the house here on Wager Talk TV as we welcome back in the one and the only Marco D'Angelo back in action here, and Sean Alvarez ready to roll here, gentlemen. Little bit of a twist this year with the Belmont, so I don't want folks who might be watching this, Marco, be like, oh, let me run out to Belmont quick and check this race. Yeah, no. It's not at Belmont. It's actually at Saratoga. So, Marco, start there for me quick. The biggest difference between racing at Belmont and racing at Saratoga, because there is a big difference.
Well, first of all, we're not going to go 1.5 miles either, Joe. The final leg of the Triple Crown is always 1.5 miles. But because there is construction and remodeling going on at Belmont, no trip to the big Sandy course this year. We're going to have it at Saratoga. And you could say, well, why don't they just make it 1.5 mile race? They don't got enough room because of the size of the track and where it's configured at. They would have to start the race literally in a turn if they wanted to go 1.5 miles. So this is going to be 1.25 mile race, which is the same distance as the Kentucky Derby. So it gives you a little added twist to this year's Belmont. Also, no Triple Crown. So obviously, it's not going to be as popular as with the casual fans that you would have if there was a Triple Crown. But I got to tell you, Joe, as far as the entries we have in this year's Belmont, even though we don't have a Triple Crown on the line, this might be the best Belmont lineup of horses that we've had maybe in the last 10 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point, Marco. Let's dive into this here, guys. We'll go through the field for you. We'll point out some of the likes and dislikes with some of these horses, and these guys will ultimately lay out the 4 top horses that they're going to be looking to bet on here on this year's Belmont. We do have 5 horses who ran in the Kentucky Derby, including a couple of the big finishers there from the Preakness. So there is, to Marco's point, a ton of talent on this track here this weekend. So, Sean, apparently you drew the short stick here. So you're up first here, my man, today. And we're going to look at the number 1 horse, Seize the Gray here. Wayne Lucas, Jamie Torres, what are we looking at with this number 1, 8-1 in the morning line? What are we looking at there?
Yeah, I mean, I think Marco's getting a little soft. I mean, I get a lot of good horses to talk about in the odd numbers, and he also gives me a Dwayne Lucas horse to talk about. I think Marco's, we got to check on him over there, Joe. But yeah, Seize the Gray, a My Race horse, owned horse. Got about, I think there's 2,500 or possibly more micro shared owners in this horse, but in the Preakness, the defending Preakness champ. So, if you look at what this horse can do, I really look back at that Pat Day Mile. We'll talk about it later with Mystik Dan, as Mystik Dan is the only horse that ran or is going to run in the Derby, the Preakness, and now the Belmont. But Seize the Gray ran on Kentucky Derby Saturday in the Grade 2 Pat Day Mile. And if you look at that race and how quickly they went up front, he was in touch with those leaders. And this race was the 8th race of the day on that Saturday. By then, every jockey and every trainer knew that on Churchill's main track that day, you had to be up and near that lead. You couldn't leave yourself too much ground to cover, as that track was just playing way too fast, too early in the races. And he was up in touch with those leaders going a mile, and they rattled off 22-1, 44-3. I mean, they went quick, and he was good enough to run away with that. And I think that 88 buyer is a little low for that, because if you look at what he did in the Preakness, and you can't knock a horse for just doing what he's asked, but he was just walking the dog up front. He had a 2-length lead all the way around the track, going workout type fractions. And when he was asked to go, there was nobody coming quick enough mainly because they didn't have the fractions to run into, but he was just left alone on the front end. Now he's going to have a target on his back. He's going to break from the rail. So Torres's hand is kind of forced to go. And is he quick enough? And I'm sure he's not going to get left alone on the lead with not only more speed in the race, but a lot of these jockeys know what he can do if he's left alone on the lead. So is he good enough with more of a target on his back come Saturday?
Yeah, it's a big question there. We'll see soon enough. We do have an even horse here, and resilience there, Marco. Belmont, Junior Alvarado on top here. Sixth at the Derby, I believe, there. But what do you think his chances are here at the Belmont?
Yeah, first of all, let's just get to clarity here about I always get the best horses. Sean's got the Preakness winner, the Kentucky Derby winner, and I'm not going to say which one of the other odd horses, but he also has the Belmont winner, okay? We'll get to that a little bit later. All right? So now I'll take resilience. And because I am resilient, I'm going to come back with this horse. I was very high on this horse in the Kentucky Derby as a long shot horse. And you know what? At the top of the stretch, I got a little bit excited because this horse was making one hell of a big sweeping move. But in retrospect and going back and watching the replay of the race, watching how the race unfolded, unfortunately, they don't have a pill for this for the horses. He made a premature move in the Kentucky Derby. He started to move way too soon in the turn. And he did get all the way up to second and looked like he was going to go right by. But while he was making that big 6-wide sweeping move in the turn, the horse that won the Kentucky Derby was making that big sweeping move too, except he was down on the rail. A little bit of ground difference from being on the rail, rolling at the same time as resilience was 6 wide. I think if he better times that move, and to be honest, he wasn't that far off of the early pace. Same with Mystik Dan. They were sitting in that second flight, but they were pretty close to a tepid pace in the Kentucky Derby. I think this horse freshened up. They skipped the Preakness, pointing to this race. If I liked him in the Derby, there is no reason for me not to like him here as well. I can't give him a minus grade for the Derby. He raced well, just made that move too soon. I think he's going to get lost on the tote board, as a couple other horses are going to be, because people are going to be infatuated by one of the new shooters in this race. And, of course, Seize the Gray winning 2 races in a row is going to get a lot of attention. And, of course, there's a horse that finished just second by a nose in the Kentucky Derby that's going to get some attention as well. And when you got a race where the Kentucky Derby winner is 5-1 in the morning line, this is a competitive race. So don't sleep on resilience to hit the board at a big price.
Yeah, definitely. Got to love the number there. Wood Memorial winner there. And, of course, 6th at the Derby. Number 2, resilience, worth a look. And I guess we're going to have to look at the only horse, I believe, that's actually run in now all 3 of the legs here of the Triple Crown there. Sean Alvarez, number 3, Mystik Dan here, 5-1. Kenny McPeak, Brian Hernandez Jr., only horse to go with all 3 legs. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing for this horse? What are you thinking?
I mean, if Ken McPeak thinks that this horse is fit enough to run in the Belmont Stakes when he doesn't have a Triple Crown on the line to go for, I definitely think that that's a good thing, that he thinks what he's seeing from the horse as far as what he's eating out of his feed and what he's seeing on the training track in the morning is good enough to run in the Belmont. I definitely think that's a good thing, as opposed to, a negative knock against this horse. But let's look at it, this horse has 2 wins. Going back to the Grade 3 Southwest at Oaklawn Park, he sat a good trip on the rail, and just like the Kentucky Derby, the seas kind of parted. He was able to run away. I mean, he won by 8 lengths. There's nothing to knock about that. But he sat a great trip and never had to do anything until basically all the pace-setting horses in front of him went too wide, and he was able to cut the corner. We saw basically, a carbon copy of that on the first Saturday in May in the Kentucky Derby. just like Marco was saying with Mystik Dan kind of sitting in that second flight and Brian Hernandez being able to save the ground on the rail, again, the seas kind of parted. He was able to get that opening without having to squeeze through. And that eventually turned out to be the deciding factor in the race. Meanwhile, Sierra Leone and Forever Young were out wide on the track, hand fighting the whole way. But, his two best races or his two wins in the last four starts have him being basically tripped out. His start three starts back in the Oaklawn Park, the Arkansas Derby at Oaklawn. He made a really good middle move, but flattened out in the stretch. And if we look back at 3 weeks ago in the Preakness, he kind of did the same thing. Now, we spoke about it earlier with how easy and how slow Seize the Gray went on, but Mystik Dan had every right to go run him down. If he had the closing kick, he was going to basically go run down Seize the Gray, because Seize the Gray wasn't running away from the field, but he kind of plodded along just like he did in the Kentucky Derby, with Sierra Leone and Forever Young making up ground. Like I said, meanwhile they're hand fighting the whole way. So they weren't coming home quicker. They were just coming home less slow than Mystik Dan. And, against this field, Marco touched about it having, a very quality Belmont Stakes field. Not necessarily somebody I'm willing to swallow a short price on, considering the lack of a closing kick in the stretch.
Yep. I do believe coming in here, the most money by any horse in this race won by Mystik Dan, $4 million. And boy, oh boy, going to be a lot of eyes on number 3, Mystik Dan. I don't know if we're going to have a whole lot of eyes on the Wine Steward, number 4, Marco. I can't think of a better guy to break this horse down than you here, my friend, because something tells me somebody who bets this horse might be looking to drink a little wine as soon as this race is over. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, if there was ever a horse that our good friend Kelly Stewart should buy, it is the Wine Steward, because we know she has consumed a couple of bottles of wine in her day. And I got to admit, Joe, going to the Peter Pan Stakes, this horse's last race, I was drinking the wine on the Wine Steward. I liked that horse in that race, and I thought it set up perfect for him. And he finished second. It was a good second. He put away the horse on the front end, but he didn't have enough to hold off Antiquarian, who came on off of his flank and got up for the win. It was a good stretch battle, but he couldn't beat that horse. And I don't think those two horses are quite the same caliber of the other horses in this race. Now, if you look at the horses' buyer speed figures, they were improving. He does have low numbers, and you would expect this race to improve because it is his third start off a layoff. But I still think he's a step below the other horses. I might put the Wine Steward at the very bottom of a trifecta or a superfecta, but I really don't think that he is a serious contender in the Belmont.
All right. Well, then going from wine to the number 5 horse in this year's Belmont Stakes, and it's Antiquarian here as a Todd Pletcher Johnny V combo there. Sean, what are you thinking here? Johnny V, Pletcher, did they get one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about Johnny V and Pletcher, but Pletcher sure has enough chances to at least give it a good shot in this Belmont Stakes race. And Marco touched on it with talking about the Wine Steward. The 5 Antiquarian is also coming out of that Peter Pan Stakes at Aqueduct. And that entire race, he sat 3 wide around the turns and kind of just in a perfect spot, chasing not necessarily a quick pace, but was in touch with those leaders, not necessarily giving them enough room to get comfortable. And he should have ran away from the field a little bit better. Actually, watching the replays, I thought the Wine Steward ran a better race with Saez in the 4 kind of digging in the stretch and making it as hard as they did for the 5 Antiquarian to get by. And if we look back at kind of more of a field that he's going to see come Saturday on the Belmont, we look back at his Louisiana Derby race at the fairgrounds when he went up against Catching Freedom, Honor Marie, Tuscan Gold, Track Phantom. Those are more quality type colts that he's going to have to beat, or at least prove that he could beat those type of horses come Saturday. And he ran kind of a disappointing sixth place, four lengths back, and nobody was really running away. Everybody was coming home a little bit on the slower end. So the fact that he didn't really have any answer there wasn't much that he beat in the Peter Pan. I'm kind of leaning away. And if I were to take one of the two that we just spoke about, I would lean more on the Wine Steward than I would the 5 Antiquarian.
All right. Well, there you go there. Pletcher, 4-time Belmont winning trainer. Will he make it a 5th? Well, Luis Saez might have something to say about that, Marco, with the number 6 Dornoch here, 15-1 morning line. What are we thinking here with Dornoch? Can Saez get the ride he needs?
Well, we talk about value in sports betting. You look to find overlays, underlays. This is a horse that's going to get lost on the tote board, as I mentioned, along with the 2-horse earlier in today's show. Dornoch, if you look, 7 career starts. This horse, 6 of the 7 starts was either the favorite or less than 3-1 in the odds on the tote board. In his last start in the Kentucky Derby, went off at 22-1 and finished up the track, finished 10th. So he's not going to get looked in this race. Now, the problem with the Derby was he had the rail. We know that the rail was a death sentence if you're a speed horse that likes to get out and be close to the pace. He had absolutely no shot whenever all of the horses came from the out down on the rail. He broke a step slow out of the gate, which sealed his fate for the race. Then when he did finally try to make a move, he starts to move up and runs into traffic and had to get checked hard in the race. Just put a line completely through that last race. Well, then you're going to say, well, then the race before that, he finished 4th. Yeah, he did. He finished 4th to Sierra Leone, Just a Touch, Epic Ride, horses that were in the Kentucky Derby. It was the first time the horse raced bad. What happened in that race? Well, he didn't break out of the gate well, was sitting 4th. This horse doesn't like to have dirt thrown in his face. This is a spot, because he has the 6 hole, he will be able to break from the middle of the pack. There's only one speed horse in the inside of him, and that's the one, Seize the Gray. And we know that, the rail could be a disadvantage for speed horses sometimes. And I don't think Seize the Gray really wants to be on the front end again this time, because he's not going to get the cheap fractions that he got in the Preakness. Plus the fact this is going to be his 5th race in 11 weeks, Seize the Gray. So I think they're going to learn a 3-hole trip. That means Doc will be able to leave and get the lead. The only speed that I'm concerned from the outside is going to be Mindframe. And this is an interesting horse. We'll talk about him later, but I don't think Mindframe wants to get into a battle early on, which will leave Dornoch on the front end. And when a horse is on the front end, especially one that likes to be there and gets to relax, these type of horses swell up. And if you look at all of his other races, he finished 1st or 2nd every time he was on the lead. I'm going to go ahead and have Dornoch in my tickets as a big player in this race as a long shot, and I think he will have the lead turning for home. The question will be if he'll be able to hold off one of the big closers, and we'll talk about, Sean will have in a few minutes.
Yes, yeah, because we even odd, Marco, even odd.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, do want to just, before we get to the number 7 horse here, just want to welcome you in. If you're just joining us, hit that thumbs up if you could. We'd much appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button to the Wager Talk TV, as you will find nobody has more content, better content than we do for all the big sporting events throughout the year. So welcome in. We certainly appreciate you taking the time to join us. And Sean, number 7, riddle me this. This is now 2 of 3 horses that Pletcher has entered into this race. Gaff Leone and Protective, and I count 3 horses that have already beaten this horse in other races. So what's up with this horse here at this number?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely an interesting horse because if you look at his races and if you look at just kind of his career record, this horse hasn't even won a race yet. Yet Todd Pletcher, who knows how to win races like this, enters him in the Belmont Stakes. And usually when you see something like that and a trainer's got numerous horses, maybe a Chad Brown turf race at Saratoga or Belmont, but usually there's something to do with either a pace type of horse or setting it up for other horses. But this horse is going to come from the back. This horse isn't setting anything up for any other horse that Pletcher is running in this race. So Pletcher sees fit of this horse in the morning that he thinks this horse at least has a chance to hit the board, if not win the Belmont. And if you look back at what this horse has done, he actually started his career at Saratoga. So he does have a race over this main track, which we'll see if that proves to be a little bit of an advantage for him. There are other horses that do have a race over this track as well. But if you look at his last two races, he had a lot of trouble in those races. In the Grade 2 Wood Memorial at Aqueduct, Carmouche just took him back way too much, too early. They weren't going quick at all up front. And he came running well. He was a little bit bothered in the stretch, but never gave up. And he was running behind a horse that we talked about earlier in Resilience, and what Resilience proved out of that race where, Protective was only 3 lengths back behind that and had absolutely no pace to run into. And, Marco and I spoke about it in the Grade 3 Peter Pan, which is Protective's last race. There wasn't a lot that this horse had to race against in that race. There wasn't any world beaters or horses that we would need to beat in the Belmont. But if you look at what this horse did, Irad took the mount in that race. He never wanted to sweep too wide because as I alluded to with the 5 Antiquarian, he was sitting the perfect trip 3 wide. Irad would have had to went 4 or 5 wide outside of that, and he would have completely been tripped out and tried to go through a hole in the stretch. And right when he tried to make that move, it got shut off. And the horse just never gave up. And that's a kind of effort that I like in a horse, and that's going to have to step up in class, and at least in buyer figures as well. Is the horse never seems to give up. He's always digging in, and if he gets a little bit of a pace to run into, I think he could be good enough come Saturday to at least hit the board at a big price.
Well, it's going to be a lot of eyes on that horse there. That again, we still got another Pletcher horse coming up here, but number 8, Marco, Honor Marie. This was a horse a lot of folks were very excited about back in the Run for the Roses, but was not to be here. What about this trip here at Belmont for the number 8 horse?
Well, Joe, you hit the nail on the head. This was the buzz horse at the Kentucky Derby, the wise guy, steam horse, whatever you want to call it. And the reason for it is because this horse got into trouble in previous races, and they felt that this horse had a big shot, was training well in the morning, all of that. Well, you know what? Here it is again. Horse is training well in the morning. Everybody's making excuses, got absolutely slammed coming out of the gate in the Kentucky Derby. Got it from both sides and lost all momentum. So had to end up taking back to 20th. Well, what happened when finally started to make the move? Well, ran right into some of the slower horses. Had to check the horse hard again. Lost momentum again. Then made a middle ground move, passing some tired horses, and ran on to be 8th. So what happens? Well, come to this race. You can make all of those excuses for Honor Marie once again. Sometimes certain horses just keep finding trouble. If this horse has a clean race, there is no question that this horse is talented enough to be right there at the wire. But this horse is his own worst enemy. Breaks slow from the gate every single start. Now, the benefit here is it's not a 20-horse field. It's a 10-horse field. The other benefit here is that it's picking up Florent Geroux instead of Ben Curtis. No disrespect to Ben Curtis, but this is a major jockey switch. So you're going to see some love for this horse come Saturday again. And I hope so, because it'll help me with a couple of the other horses that I think will get lost on the tote board that actually deserve to get a second chance, in my opinion. I can't keep making excuses for Honor Marie, but one of these weeks, he's going to get there, and say, see, told you, but not with my money this week.
Yeah, Warhorse. He did make a valiant effort, though, to come back in Derby, but it was just too little too late in that one there. But then that leaves us to the number 9 horse. And I cannot believe, Sean, that Marco opted to give you Sierra Leone here. Chad Brown, Flavien Prat. You got to love a horse that's 5 races, 3-2, and both losses by less than a nose. You got to love that here. So what happens in this race here with everybody's faith? They've been talking about this horse and the Belmont since before the Derby. They're like, oh, just wait until Sierra Leone gets to the Belmont. All right, well, is that the Belmont? What's going to happen here?
Yeah, I mean, I think also in the news on that is how vocal Chad Brown was on his disgust with Tyler Gaffleone, as he thought that there was a clear plan in the turn. The stick needs to be in Tyler's left hand to ensure that Sierra Leone doesn't duck in, which he's done in almost every one of his races. If you look back at the Risen Star, if you look back at the Bluegrass, both races that he won when Tyler was on, Tyler was going with the left-handed stick. He was never going with the right. The horse was still ducking in. It's just what this horse tends to do. Now, Chad Brown makes the switch to Flavien Prat. I've said it in numerous shows before. I think Flavien's one of the better jockeys in the country. Really good horseman. Tends to understand what the horse needs or wants to do in a race to get him to be comfortable and settle. And usually tends to get just the best effort out of him. So I think the big question is that can Flavien get Sierra Leone to straighten up when he switches leads turning for home? Because all 3 of his previous races, whether it was Tyler's fault, whether it was what Sierra Leone tends to do, he just lugs in left and right. And what we saw in the Derby was, unfortunately, Forever Young was directly in the inside of Tyler and Sierra Leone. And so when he lugged in, Forever Young took a little, I would say, a dislike to it, and kind of bounced back to him. So, if he gets clear running like he did, in the Risen Star, where there was really nobody to his inside, ducking in doesn't necessarily, do him a disservice, as when he is lugging in, he's coming hard. So this is a horse that doesn't necessarily need a quick pace to run into. It definitely will help, but he doesn't need to be as far back as what we saw in the Derby. And this is what the buzz horse, and definitely the horse to beat. Look back at his price tag in the FTS sales of $2.3 million. He's definitely running to that price tag, and I think Chad Brown's definitely looking forward to seeing what him and Flavien Prat can do on Saturday.
Yeah, I think it was great, right? Because Chad Brown says the horse doesn't do it in the workouts, but when he gets on the track against other horses, he tends to drift a little bit. Well, good luck trying to fix that here. Sierra Leone, the favorite, the number 9 horse, which leaves us, Marco, the number 10 horse and the 3rd entry by Todd Pletcher. And, of course, who else? Irad Ortiz Jr. on top here. Mindframe, 7-2. What are we to make of this horse here? Not a ton of experience.
No, Joe, but this is the horse that everybody's going to talk about all week long. 7-2 in the morning line, has 2 career starts, didn't win the Kentucky Derby, and is a shorter price on the morning line than the horse that won the Kentucky Derby, okay? You said it. You've got one of the biggest trainers, most visible trainers in the sport in Pletcher. You've got one of the most notable jockeys in the sport in Irad. And let's throw in the trifecta. You got the most vocal owner in racing, Mike Rapoli. And that's one of the reasons why Protective is in this race, which I feel shouldn't be here. But you know what? As an owner that has an ego, at least I've been told that I fit that bill. If you tell the trainer, we're going there, you're going there. That's the bottom line, because you're paying the bills. So that's why sometimes Rapoli horses show up where they shouldn't. But this one deserves to be here and get the shot. But here's the thing. Everybody is going bonkers over his 2 buyer speed figures. Right out of the gate, he gets a 103 in a maiden race, a maiden special weight, okay? He sat 4th in this race. I want to take you back through that race. These are the fractions of that race. The quarter went in 21.92. The half went in 44.44. The three quarters, 109.22. That was absolutely ridiculous. Suicide fractions. The horses were going on the front end. In a maiden. That would have been suicide fractions for aged horses, open company allowance horses. It was ridiculous. And so naturally, this horse has talent. He went by them like they were standing still in the stretch and win by 13 lengths. And that's how you get a 103 buyer out of the gate. Then he comes back in the next race and he cuts the pace, wins going away, out for a Sunday drive. Ortiz never moved his hands in the race. He wins by 7.5, and they were gearing him down at the wire. He got a 97 buyer there. So everybody is feeling that this horse is some kind of freak. Let me see what he does when he gets looked in the eye, and he's going to get looked in the eye. As I said, Dornoch's going to leave. If these two decide to hook up in a battle early, it's going to do both of them in. If they do the right thing and just set off of Dornoch's flank, is the way I would go into this one if I was Irad, then make your run at Dornoch. He's got a shot. But what's he going to do if he does battle Dornoch at the top of the stretch and gets by him? Then he's going to have Mystik Dan coming at him. And Mystik Dan doesn't have that quick burst, but he's got that grinding where you're going to be in a battle for a period of time in the stretch. And if he does put him away, then who's coming on the outside? You know who's coming. I don't care if he's coming left-handed, right-handed, he's coming, Sierra Leone. I don't think this horse wins the race. He could hold on to be on the ticket, but this is too much of a jump for a horse that is making his third career start in the Belmont. Granted, it's not 1.5 miles, it's 1.25 miles. Still, this is a major, major jump in class for a horse that has not been tested at all yet. Let's see what happens when he does get some resistance in the race, which he will here.
Yeah, well, you talk about some of these ridiculous speed figures that we see. I am still trying to comprehend how Secretariat did 1.5 miles in 2:24. I still can't figure out how in the world, without a jetpack on him, did he manage to do 2:24 and 1.5 miles. Still one of the most unbelievable feats in anybody's lifetime here. But we don't have 1.5 miles. We got 1.25 miles here. We've got some horses, it sounds like, between these guys that certainly have the speed and the closing opportunity in this one. So the question is, how do you bet it? Which way do you go? These guys will have their 4 top horses coming your way here in just a minute, but I do want to let you know there's an opportunity to be able to partner with both of these guys on Saturday. And of course, you can do it with Marco, who actually owns and breeds racehorses. If you didn't, he mentioned Ego owner. I don't know if you guys caught that, but yes, there's a reason there. He also happens to be crushing Major League Baseball. The NBA Finals are here, not to mention the NHL Stanley Cup. He's been crushing all of it, guys, and an opportunity for you to partner up with Marco this weekend, and you can do it and save yourself $10 right now by using Marco 10 at closing. That is Marco 10, and you can partner up all of his picks here on this Saturday across all sports, including his card at Saratoga. Worth partnering up with Marco, and use that Marco 10 now. And just $39 will get you each and every play. And same thing here with Sean, who's also been crushing it, guys. Nobody spends more time at the track than Sean Alvarez does. I can promise you that. The man knows what's happening here, and an ability to be able to hop on a little early bird pricing right now on Sean's page at Wager Talk, as you can see, for $25. It'll include all his pick 3s, his pick 5s, all his exotics, his exactas, you name it, across the card, and it's a huge racing card on Saturday. So head over to wagertalk.com, hop on board with Marco, hop on board with Sean. There's no reason not to make it a very profitable Saturday at the Belmont. All right, now it is time to talk. Each one of these guys has 4 horses they like. They'll build their card around these horses. So, Sean, I'm going to start with you here, my man. Give me the horses you have circled here that you're going to work with come on Saturday.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a little bit of a different stance than Marco. I'm actually going to play the very inexperienced 10 Mindframe on top at 7-2. What I really like about this horse is that he doesn't need anybody to set his own trip. He can go to the front if, let's say, Dornoch and Sees the Gray missed the break and nobody wants to go. He can set that lead and he can kick on with it like he did last time out at Churchill Downs. Yeah, they were going too fast, too early at Gulfstream, but he's been able to sit off the pace and then go by when Irad kind of pushes that button with that high cruising speed. And we've seen that year in and year out with other, I wouldn't say great, but other solid horses that we've seen that are going on to win big classic type races like the Belmont Stakes. So I'm not going to get beat by that horse. I like what he's doing. He doesn't need any help in the trip that he needs to get. So I'm going to play the 10 Mindframe on top at 7-2. And I like the jockey switch with Flavian Proud. I really like what he does with his horses and how he's able to get the best kind of performance out of that horse. So I'm not going to get beat by Sierra Leone, the number 9. I don't think that he needs the speed that we saw kind of in that Kentucky Derby last time out to set up his closing kick. I think Flavian can kind of keep him in touch with that middle pack. And then this is just kind of that push button type horse that, loves to run when asked. And I think the biggest question mark is there going to be somebody to the inside, and can Flavian get him to settle and straighten up? So those are the 2 horses that I'm going to be playing on top, whether it be in pick 5s and exotic type races and exactas and trifectas. And I went a little weird on underneath because I really do think that we're going to see a price, at least in second or third. And so I have the 8 Arna Marie in my third kind of placing in my top selections. And Marco spoke about it. We've seen, him completely miss the break, came running, ran into slower fraction type horses in the Kentucky Derby. And we can I would just kind of put a cross through that race. And, the horse is running and training well, kind of like he was in the Kentucky Derby. So we may see those wise guy type of plays like Marco spoke about. And I will say one thing, that there is a little bit of precipitation in the area. This is a horse that if the track turns up wet, I would probably lean against this horse. His 2 worst races are the Risen Star at Fairgrounds and an optional Clamor 100K at Churchill. And both of them were on a sloppy track. Just didn't do much running in either one of those. So I don't see this horse as somebody I would play on a wet track. And, Joe, we all like big old bombs. And this is, one of the longest prices in the field. I actually like the 7 Protective. I get that he may not deserve to be in this field, but like sassy owners like Marco, Rapoli probably pushed the buttons on Fletcher and getting him in this race. But I alluded to him in my breakdown. I won't go too far into it, but he had 2 bad trips coming from further back. And I think he's going to get a little bit of a better trip this time out. And he does come running and he doesn't give up. He doesn't spit the bit, come in the stretch. And, we talked about it with Chad Brown taking Tyler Gaffleone off of Sierra Leone. I don't know about you, Joe. I'd probably be rather, ride this 9-5 favorite than the 20-1 longer price. So maybe we see a little chippy Tyler Gaffleone and hook to the inside of Sierra Leone and not allow Sierra Leone to lug in. So I don't know. I think the 7 can definitely outrun his odds at 20-1. So I'll end my top 4 with the 7 Protective at that big old price of 20-1.
All right. Looking at 10, 9, 8, and 7 for Sean there. And that leaves us, of course, with sassy Marco D'Angelo. And sassy it is, you horse owner, you. So from the suite that you'll be watching this from, what exactly are the horses you're going to be looking at? How much do you agree? How much do you disagree with what Sean's approach is?
Well, Joe, I said it before the Kentucky Derby. Sierra Leone is the best 3-year-old in the country at the moment. That was heading into the Kentucky Derby. We said we were worried about the 20-horse field after the Kentucky Derby. I said this is still the best 3-year-old in the country. They should have beat Mystik Dan. Mystik Dan had the absolute perfect trip. And these two horses, Forever Young and Sierra Leone, we know they played bumper cars the whole way down the stretch. Either one of those horses beats Mystik Dan in the Derby if they don't bang into each other. And yes, it was Sierra Leone that was doing more of the banging, and Tyler Gaffleone reaching his hand out, touching the other horse. Granted, that did happen, but he still only got beat by the slimmest of margins. It's not a 20-horse field here. Yes, Mystik Dan is still in here. Is Mystik Dan going to get an absolutely perfect trip again? Maybe. But here's the difference. This horse is rested. This horse is freshened up. Mystik Dan, I know he's training good. He looks good in the morning. You still cannot argue the fact 3 races, 5 weeks, that is a disadvantage going against Sierra Leone. So I'm putting Sierra Leone on top, and you know how I feel about Flavien Prat. If you can have a man crush on a jockey, that's mine. There's no question about it. He is, in my opinion, the best jockey in the country. If I had my choice, the two best, him and Irad, I take Flavien Prat. And the reason for that is he gets the most out of the horse, and he does it doing it, saving ground, whatever. How funny would it be if somehow he works out an inside trip for Sierra Leone? You can't lug in if you're at the hub rail, okay? Let's see if that happens once. But I guarantee you this much. If he is wide making that sweeping turn, he will keep him wide enough that if he does lug in, he'll let him lug in while not losing momentum. And this horse, I feel, wins the race. Second, Mystik Dan's done nothing wrong. We missed the boat on him. We overlooked him in the Kentucky Derby. He ran back big in the Preakness. I think he's there to run on the ticket. He's one of those horses that's a plotter. He'll be positioned just right. I think he hits the ticket. Third place, I talked a lot about him, resilience. I think this horse just may push the button a second too soon in the Kentucky Derby. If he makes that kind of move, timed right here in the Belmont, he is on this ticket, and he is on it at a big price. Those 3 horses, I had no problem putting them in that order. When I got to my 4th horse, I literally had 3 horses that I could have put in that 4th spot. Dornoch was the winner because I think he's going to be on the lead, and I think the 4th place is going to come down to Dornoch and Mindframe. The difference between the two, in my opinion, is the experience, and that's why I went with Dornoch. And everybody forgets that's all they talked about when we went to the Derby. Brother of Mage, okay? This horse, and as I said, prior to his last 2 races, was 6 for 6 on the exacta. I think if this horse is on the front end, he is going to be on the ticket. That's why I decided on him over Mindframe. So for me, it's 9, 3, 2, 6, but I'm all about Sierra Leone on top.
Let the record reflect that neither of the pundits have any interest in your Preakness winner, and Dwayne Lucas sees the gray. There was no number 1 on any of those, on any of that list. So let the record reflect that. But there you got it. We've got, of course, 4 horses that each of these guys likes in this race. There are some differences in those 4 horses. So the easiest way to make sure that you don't miss out on any of their plays and combinations, exactas, picks 3s, pick 5s, triples, superfectas, is by heading over to wagertalk.com and partner up with them. Don't forget, use that code Marco10 at checkout. $39 will get you every one of Marco's plays at Saratoga, as well as Major League Baseball, NHL, NBA for the day. And of course, for $25 on Sean's page, his entire days worth of racing at Saratoga. The entire card can be all yours for $25 right now. Take advantage. Do it now. Get it ready, because Saturday and this weekend is going to be one hectic day. That is for sure. But a great day of racing, a great way to end the Triple Crown races here at Saratoga, not Belmont, even though it is the Belmont Stakes. It should be a lot of fun. And if these guys have their way, there are going to be some big numbers at the track here on Saturday. So on behalf of Marco and Sean, we appreciate the time as always. Don't forget a thumbs up, much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button, and more importantly, cash those tickets. We'll see you again soon. Breeders' Cup at some point down the line. We'll be back here with Pony Pundits. Until then, best of luck this weekend. Boom.